Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Captain America Sentinel of Liberty Issue 1. And I really enjoyed this one. Now, it is a first issue, so it's $4.99, but I think that they did a pretty good job in justifying that. So, I like this one. I liked the Symbol of Truth one, so these are definitely ones that I'm going to be focusing on going forward. Now, granted, I might figure out what's going on with the Fantastic Four since Slott's ending his run. I'll see kind of maybe what's going on with that creative team, or I might switch out to Spider-Man. I don't know yet, because I have liked the Fantastic Four, but I have also been liking what they've been doing with Spidey so far. But from what I've done with this, I do like this handle on Steve, and I do like the setup of this overarching mystery and what's kind of going on, because we kind of have one mystery, but we've got it coming from Steve's side and Bucky's side, so we'll kind of have to see how this kind of works out. So, we pretty much get this beginning put in the forge, and we don't get much, but we see someone making the shield in 1941, and then busting his way out, and then just seeing it there. And then we see that Steve starts narrating and kind of telling us about, like, what he knows, like, about, like, war, friendship, hate, like, the mission, standing for those who can't, like, devastation, love, and, like, he knows the dream and everything. And, like, this is a really kind of cool page to kind of have Steve at the center and kind of showcase his history and everything. It's just, like, that's a really nice splash page. It just shows a lot of cool stuff going on there, and just really shows Cap's history pretty well. And then he just doesn't know everything else. So we see that he is kind of going more back to a basic, more kind of approach, finding actually his old apartment that he used to live in, and go there. And he's like, yep, there's not much. It's kind of a rat hole, but, like, hey, don't ask me for nothing and I'll never let you down. As Steve then starts talking with his neighbor, learning his name is Amari, and then be like, hey, Amari, I'm Steve. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And he's just talking about, like, it's a nothing tenement, forgotten, unremembered, but it's the Captain America house, and if people found it, they'd pretty much turn it into a museum or whatnot. But he's kind of, like, living there. Like, there's things that are different about it because of the time period, and things that are the same, as we then see this kind of cool little bit where it's showcasing kind of, like, present day and, like, what it was like for him back then. I'm like, that's kind of cool. And then we see what his daily routine is. His morning is starting the same way, a jog around the island, 32 miles, as he takes the shield, and people just, like, always excited more about this shield than about him, which he doesn't hate. He's like, yeah, that's how it should be. And that's how Steve usually is with these kind of things. So I'm like, okay, you got me with that. As we then see kids, like, playing around and messing with it, people stopping and, like, talking to him and everything like that, and how he's like, hey, that's good with, like, all the few years of grand directors and hate mongers and red skulls, and that when they do look at it, they should see themselves. And Bucky's saying he's only doing this because Sharon's on secret business. Sharon would say he can only think when he's punching Nazis or moving faster than 70 miles per hour on foot, but he likes that there's a peace and solitude and enjoying community. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. Like, sometimes you need to be by yourself to do certain things, and, like, doing an exercise thing like this, and then, like, coming together with other people just about nothing, just, like, doing your daily stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, I get that. And then finishing with, like, this show belongs to all of us. And, of course, some lessons aren't learned so easily. And that's why man invented community college. And I think this is a really kind of cool thing of Steve going to, like, a community college and learning stuff about art as he's, like, drawing on a tablet, and somebody's trying to, like, help him figure it out, because it's, sure, there's the kind of older person element to it, but sometimes UI things are made, like, complete and utter shit. So him not understanding how to get to certain layers and everything as they're kind of drawing stuff, and people in the class are kind of, like, helping him out, is kind of cool, and just, like, help him to, like, it's life drawing, Steve, it really helps if you have one. He's like, what? I looked, as they're doing, like, nude model, like, drawing and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And he, like, kind of goes through, because he, like, names them, like, Mia's helping him at first, then David, and he's like he does something with the internet, I guess. Hudson, I don't think he's ever left the city. Part of him, Steve is jealous, and then he kind of actually talks with the people and like goes out with them, having like food and all that stuff, talking with her about like the Mets because he's into underdogs, and he's talking about how like they're young and they're wise in their own ways, but there's like a gulf that sometimes is like insurmountable, but like they're trying and everything. That's kind of a cool thing to kind of see him like talking about. And then him and Hudson pretty much talking about like Eleanor Roosevelt and stuff like that. And then him helping Amari who's being bullied. And I love a little kind of cool thing is he gets back to his apartment and he's got a Spidey dish that he puts his keys into. That's just I love thinking that Steve would do that and be like, yeah, Spidey. And there's other people that he talks to that are like within his generation who calls themselves radio company as they're pretty much talking about their days and everything like that and what they've been doing. And then as they're doing this, we see that this number sequence is popping up and they're like, what the hell is this? This is kind of new. And then he's like, radio company, assemble. And then each of these older people, they start doing these things to kind of figure out what the pattern is. And I'm like, this is actually kind of cool. It's a weird little thing that popped up, but it leads to greater things later. As we see Roger figures out it's a substitution cipher. John was a rocket scientist, and he breaks down the numbers with math. And then we see that puzzle-loving Pam is able to figure it all out. It's a really cool way of showing what happens when group projects really work well and you've got people that are into something just figuring out what's going on, and they find out it's latitude and longitude, a date and a message, and that something's starting, and Steve's got it all kind of drawn out, and so he decides to get himself suited up. He's 104 years young, and he says that he's like throwing every kind of punch there is and taking twice as many, but this part never gets old. The heroes that followed him didn't have like the benefits of other kind of stuff. They wrapped themselves up in armor technology, self-made symbols. They had to work at it, forge something new, and hope to God it lasts. He's lucky because even in his worst fights and darkest days, every time he stepped on the field, he got to armor himself in meaning, and he gets to wield the dream. And that's a really kind of cool suit-up sequence for Cap like that. I'm like, all right, and make it real. And then we just see this really awesome thing because evidently it was set on the 4th of July that was going on. And I do like seeing all the different kind of stuff going on, and then the Stark Unlimited balloon there. It's just really kind of cool. And him and Bucky just seeing everything out there, and it's like, all right. And then Bucky's like, listen, 7 hours, you sure this is legit? And Steve's like, I'm not taking any chances because there's like 8.5 million people. Yeah, but only about 1.5 million of them are dressed up like you. Happy birthday, Steve. Looks like the world's got cat fever again. It's like, better not let him down. So then Bucky pretty much gets on top of balloons, able to figure out what's kind of going on. Sees, like, I might not be the Winter Soldier anymore, but that's one of the benefits of a life of violence. My eyes are always open. And then sees the target on the East River, picking up strange energy signature, antimatter explosive, and that they haven't seen that uniform since the war. And Steve's like, he's going to regret taking the colors of men I respect. And we see that he starts giving us information on the destroyer of, like, Brian Fallsworth. And it's like, ooh, this is kind of cool. I don't know that much about this dude, but I do like how they lay it out in a really kind of cool way. We get to see the dude, which looks pretty great, that costume-wise. I'm like, all right, that's pretty intimidating. But evidently, Cap worked side by side with this dude. Eventually, Brian taking on his father's moniker as Union Jack, while his boyfriend Roger took upon Brian's mantle as the Destroyer. Brian then died, and then left behind the legacy that he had. And Steve's like, I'm not going to let this thing go on. I'm not going to let you sully this dude's legacy. And he pretty much cracks him with the shields, like, I'm not letting you do this. And he's like, oh, you actually showed, you neo-fascist trash bomb. I'm like, okay, let's see how this one works out, you nutty little bastard. And he says that he thought his boss was bluffing. It's like, that's kind of interesting, giving us that kind of a little bit there. And then saying that he's got unearned confidence. and that tonight's the start of the true 21st century. Revolution's coming, and that he's wondering if he likes fireworks, as he then blasts him with pretty much like an energy blast that's like on the level of Thor, and he's like, "Oh, great! I like hit him with the shield, and it just made his ass cockier." And then he's like, "Bucky, I could use some help, but the antimatter is stopping the bullets." And Bucky's like, "Listen, I got a kill shot. I can do it." But of course, he's like, "No, we're not doing that. We can do this without this going on." And then Cap also gives us an idea of what's going on with the shield, being that it's like forged from a vibranium steel alloy, which is good to kind of know what we're kind of working with here, because sometimes there's other metals worked in depending upon if it's certain shields or not certain shields, because sometimes there's like adamantium, sometimes at other points it like it's a temporary power boost if you put like uru or something on it. I think that sometimes either that I have thought that like it would be interesting if like uru was part of it or whatnot. So it's good to be like, okay, it's vibranium steel alloy that we're working with here. Let's see. And he's just telling him to run away and then just witness the glory to come, as he then goes after Bucky, and he's like pretty much blasting him on top of that balloon, and Steve's just trying to pretty much like, he also talks about how like super soldiers are psyops because they're pretty much deterrents. You hear the name and you're supposed to have like already won the thing. He's like using his powers expertly, but he's still new enough to the game that he doesn't understand fighting Cap, that he'll run, but he's never going to run away. He'll tactically retreat to come. He asks to utilize a giant shield balloon to pretty much get to the point to then smack his ass out. And Bucky tries to shoot at him and take him down, but of course, Steve being as he is, he stops that. He's like, nope, there's been enough destruction today. And that's just really cool. I really like the artwork there, because you get cool detail, but you get the cool shadowing of everything kind of going on with the bullets ricocheting from his shield. And then he does a great punch that breaks the fucking mask off, and he gets the kind of device that allowed him to like put out that kind of energy, commenting that it's like something from Dimension Z, which I like that callback, and that it's got like a song that only Eldritch weapons can sing, that it sounds like Kate as he crushes it, and sees that it's some kind of crystal, and Bucky's like, sweet God, I'm done with crystals, infinity like stones, and frickin' cosmic cubes. And he's like, you and me both. And the dude's talking about how they're obsessed with the past, but they can't see the future when they're holding it. And he's like, look, speak clearly, make sure you're safely into custody, who do you work for, what's going on. There's no walking away from this. I failed to execute his move, that means I'm a dead dude. And Steve's like, we can still help you anyway. And he's like, the shield isn't what you think. It's not your symbol, it's theirs. As he then blasts with some kind of energy that kills him. It's like, damn, that's an interesting difference to like a cyanide capsule. And then Steve's pretty much talking about like what we know. I know my enemy will tell me anything to get inside my head. And I know the easiest way to destroy the dream is with lies. And I know the truth when I hear it. As we then see the dude with like blood coming out of like his eyes and mouth. And then a symbol. And it's like, huh, interesting. So we're then seeing Steve talking about that person who sent the dudes got his blood on his hands, but that on his dying breath he left Steve a way to make it right, and that he's been wielding the shield all these years, and he's got to kind of like look after it, and he like look into what's kind of going on, and he knows after a lifetime of fighting for the dream he's going to have to wake up. And then we see that Bucky is like talking to his cat, which I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like the lost glove is happy, but I'm not lost anymore. And he says 1 down and 4 to go, as we see him fill in that we've got one thing that could be a part of what's going on with the whole kind of the kind of star elements. So we'll see what's going on with the crystal and everything with that. So we'll have to look in to see what's going on, what was happening in, I think, 1951. And we see Berlin, and we see 1989, so we'd have to kind of look into that kind of stuff. As we then see someone pretty much talking about, like, that this is their kind of, the person that probably set that dude on the field. Talking about the century game, that these people with these boundless years of life, they never learned to play checkers, as they've pretty much been trying to play chess with this whole kind of thing going on. And that he's already got his pawn turned into a king, and that the downfall is that he's put Captain America on the board, and that's his opener, and that the 21st century will be played for keeps and to forward the revolution. So it's like, okay, this is interesting that he's like doing an opening salvo, and that he wanted to have Captain America on the board, and there's this shadowy century game thing going on. So I am interested to learn more about that, and I did like this because I like the handle that they had with Steve. They might have made Bucky a little bit more kill happy than I liked. Not that he was like kill happy. He was in a situation where his tactical expertise of being like, I need to take out this dude with whatever I've got because he's got energy that could really kill people. But I do like that Steve was like, listen, let's not kill him, and he backed that up with his actions. So I liked how we set up, had Steve put into an interesting kind of status quo where he's pretty much living where he used to live, kind of just a regular kind of apartment, going to community college and like talking with people and understanding people and just getting into like more art and stuff like that before he's talking with like his older kind of people, and they have a mystery that pops up that is leading to this kind of thing. So I think this was a pretty good first issue to kind of establish what the creative team's trying to do with Cap, and I like the tone that they're setting so far, and I'm really intrigued to see what goes on with this shadowy cabal and the Sentry game, and what is behind the shield for Steve, and what is going on with these weird cubey like crystal things, and how that's tied with Bucky. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.